In the 1970s, Isaac Hayes, Marvin Gaye, and Curtis Mayfield weren't just stars. They were revolutionaries fighting racism with wah-wah guitars and orchestras bigger than most films' budgets. But why did some critics call these soundtracks dangerous propaganda? Wait until you hear which record changed everything. Here are 10 top Blaxploitation soundtracks that changed music forever. Number 10, Ain't It Hell Up in Harlem.
I said, ain't it hell?
When James Brown's original score for Hell Up in Harlem got tossed, Motown called in Edwin Starr, the same powerhouse voice behind War. Starr didn't come alone. He worked with Phonce Mizell and Freddie Perren, part of the Mizell brothers production team who were reshaping Motown with jazz-funk sophistication. The sessions went down in Motown's Hollywood studios, crisp, polished, but still raw enough to match Harlem street grit. The record dropped in January 1974 with cuts like Easin' In, Big Papa, and Airport Chase. Easin' In, with its steady groove and cinematic strings, became a goldmine for DJs, sampled later by Ice Cube, Scarface, and others. Critics at the time were lukewarm, but collectors today call it one of Starr's funkiest hidden gems. Dusty Groove even ranks it alongside Willie Hutch's strongest work. It never climbed the charts like Superfly, but its balance of hard-edge funk and Motown sheen proves soundtracks could outlive the movies they were written for. Number 9, Slaughter's Big Ripoff.
Hitman, don't get you then Slaughter will.
James Brown was on a tear in the early 70s, and when producers tapped him for Slaughter's Big Ripoff, he brought the entire JB's machine. Fred Wesley's horn arrangements, razor sharp. Jabo Starks' drumming, unshakable. Brown cut 13 tracks for Polydor in 1973, and it's basically him turning a Blaxploitation sequel into a full-blown funk sermon. The single Sexy 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 hit number 6 on Billboard's R&B chart, climbing to 950 pop. That didn't come without drama. Critics noticed it recycled grooves from his earlier hit, Money Won't Change You. But in true James Brown fashion, he doubled down, layering it with scorching horns, call and response vocals, and sheer attitude. People Get Up and Drive Your Funky Soul later became a hip-hop sampling staple, cropping up everywhere from Public Enemy to Eric B. and Rakim. Some reviewers at the time wrote it off as uneven, but hindsight proves otherwise. This is pure Brown in his prime, turning film filler into funk legacy. Number 8, The Mac.
Got no regrets, got no sorrow.
When you talk about The Mac, you're talking about Willie Hutch at his creative peak. Hutch had already proven himself inside Motown, but this 1973 Mo West soundtrack cemented his reputation as a master arranger who could turn street hustler drama into symphonic funk. Recorded in Hollywood at Mo West Studios, the album clocks in just over 37 minutes, but every second counts. Brothers Gonna Work It Out landed on the Hot Soul Singles chart in May 1973, climbing to number 18, a bona fide anthem for hustlers and survivors alike. Backing vocals from Carolyn Willis and the Water Sisters give the whole thing a gospel meets grit vibe. Tracks like Slick and Max Stroll, The Getaway, fuse strings and horns with chase scene intensity that still feels cinematic today. The soundtrack reached number 17 on the R&B charts, outlasting the film itself. Number 7, Coffy.
Coffee is the color.
Roy Ayers walked into Sound Ideas Studios in New York in April 1973, and in just 4 days, recorded a soundtrack that became a blueprint for jazz-funk cinema. Coffy wasn't just another Blaxploitation score. It was Ayers showing how vibes, strings, and percussion could tell the story as powerfully as Pam Grier herself. Released on Polydor, the 36-minute album is stacked. Coffy is the color lays down the sultry theme. King George drips menace. Shining Symbol floats with Ayers' vibraphone at the center, and End of Sugar Man delivers a tense finale. Dee Dee Bridgewater's vocals and Wayne Garfield's chants push the soundtrack beyond instrumental cool into emotional territory. Though it only peaked at number 31 on the Billboard Jazz LPs chart, its legacy is massive. Producers from Pete Rock to DJ Premier have mined it for samples. Number 6, Across 110th Street.
I was the third brother of five, doing whatever I had to do to survive.
Few soundtracks hit as hard as Bobby Womack's Across 110th Street. Released on United Artists in 1973, it paired Womack's aching soul vocals with J.J. Johnson's jazz-driven orchestral score, making a 40-minute album that's both gritty and elegant. The 11 tracks weave between vocal anthems and instrumental cues: Harlem Clavinet, Harlem Love Theme, Hang On in There, each filled with texture from legends like bassist Carol Kaye and percussionist Emil Richards. The title track became iconic, climbing to number 19 on the Billboard Soul chart and number 56 on the Hot 100. It's a raw ballad about poverty, desperation, and surviving systems rigged against you. Womack doesn't sugarcoat. He exposes the streets with gospel passion and blues grit. Decades later, Tarantino used it in Jackie Brown, and Ridley Scott dropped it into American Gangster. Number 5, Black Ceasar. When James Brown decided to score Black Ceasar, he didn't just lend songs, he brought the entire JB's arsenal. Released February 1973 on Polydor, the album runs just over 36 minutes but never lets up. Fred Wesley's horn lines blast like brass knuckles, Jimmy Nolan's chicken scratch guitar snaps with precision, and Jabo Stark's drums anchor the groove with martial tightness. Add Lynn Collins' fiery vocals on Mama Feel Good, and you've got a soundtrack that could stand alone as a funk classic. Down and Out in New York City reached Waxy Year 13 on the R&B chart and broke into the Hot 100 at 150. But it's The Boss and Blind Man Can See It that built the record's afterlife. Hip-hop sampled them relentlessly. Nas, Ice-T, even Public Enemy found gold in those breaks. Critics at the time hailed it as Brown's leap from stage dynamo to cinematic storyteller. Number 4, Sweetback's Baadass song. Melvin Van Peebles wasn't just making a film, he was staging a cultural rebellion. He wrote, directed, and scored Sweetback's Baadass song in 1971, enlisting a young, unsigned Earth, Wind & Fire to perform the soundtrack. The kicker? Van Peebles couldn't even read music. He numbered piano keys to capture melodies, turning his limitations into raw invention. Released in June 1971 on Stax Records, the album runs about 37 minutes and brims with wild contrast, hymn-like chants, free-form jazz rhythms, raw funk breaks, snippets of dialogue. It reached year 13 on Billboard's R&B albums chart, impressive considering it dropped before the film itself. That was intentional. Van Peebles couldn't afford traditional marketing, so he used the record as advertising. The gamble worked. The film, shot for $150,000, raked in $15.2 million. Number 3, Trouble Man. Marvin Gaye's Trouble Man isn't just a soundtrack, it's his most underrated masterpiece. Released December 8, 1972 on Motown's Tamla label, it marks the only film score in Gaye's career where he held absolute control. He wrote, produced, arranged, and even played multiple instruments during sessions at Hitsville West in Los Angeles. The 38-minute record weaves vocal songs with moody instrumentals. The title track dropped as a single in November 1972, hitting number 7 on the Hot 100 and number 4 on the Soul chart. Cuts like Don't Mess with Mr. T, Cleo's Apartment, and Life is a Gamble mix symphonic strings with blues-drenched funk, creating an atmosphere of danger and longing. Though the film barely registered, the soundtrack soared, peaking at number 12 on the Billboard 200 and staying on the charts for weeks. Number 2, Shaft.
Who's the black private dick that's a sex machine to all the chicks?
Isaac Hayes doesn't just score Shaft. He turns it into a cultural earthquake. Recorded in 1971 at Stax Studios in Memphis, Hayes watched rough film cuts and composed on instinct, laying down theme from Shaft, Soulsville, and Ellie's Love theme, almost back to back. The Bar-Kays handled rhythm tracks in one blistering day, strings and horns the next, Hayes' vocals the day after. The result? A double LP running 69 minutes that fused orchestral drama with raw funk. Theme from Shaft not only hit #1 but won Hayes the 1972 Academy Award for Best Original Song, making him the first black artist to win an Oscar outside acting. The full soundtrack ruled the Billboard 200 at #1 for 2 weeks, stayed on the chart for 60, and dominated the R&B chart for 14 weeks straight. Its wah-wah guitar riff, cascading horns, and lush strings created a template. The soundtrack wasn't background, it was the star. #1, Superfly.
I'm your mama, I'm your daddy, I'm that nigga in the alley.
Curtis Mayfield's Superfly isn't just an album, it's a manifesto dressed in funk and soul. Written and recorded between late 1971 and spring 1972 at Curtis Studios in Chicago and Bell Sound in New York, it clocked in at just under 37 minutes but changed the rules of film music forever. Released on July 11, 1972, it immediately outshone the movie itself, selling millions and going gold on the strength of Freddie's Dead, #2 R&B, #4 pop, and Superfly, #5 R&B, #8 pop. Each track is a social document. Pusher Man exposes the drug game, Little Child Runnin' Wild speaks to systemic poverty, while Junkie Chase turns addiction into sonic drama. The irony? The film grossed only around $2 to $3 million, but the soundtrack soared far higher, proving music could eclipse the movie. Today, it's endlessly sampled by hip-hop giants and revered as the moment a soundtrack became both art and activism. If you love diving into these soundtracks, don't stop here. Check out our other deep dives into cinema's hidden history. Hit that like button, subscribe for more rare stories, and ring the bell so you never miss the next surprise.